Welcome everybody to this tutorial. Today we're gonna go ahead and do quite an important lecture on functions. So functions is something that we are going to need for the creation of our keylogger, and you will soon see what they are. Basically, you create a function to group code, and let's say we create another function outside of our main function in which everything gets called and everything works through the from the main function. But we can also create functions outside of main and then call them within the main function. Why will we need this? Well, as I said, we need to group certain parts of the code and create different functionalities for our program that we are going to incorporate later on in the process of the creation of the keylogger. Now, here's a simple example. Suppose you need a function to add two numbers. Do you want to really write a plus b every time you need? Okay, a plus b is a really simple example, but suppose you needed addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. So those could be four functions, and they could get called whenever you would need to divide or add numbers or something like that. Functions can do extremely complex things. They can do pretty much anything you can imagine, and you can separate your code with them and reuse it basically. So if you have a function that is intended for one purpose, you might be in need of that purpose at a later point of time during the creation of your program, so you can just reuse that particular function. Let me show you this in a practical example, and it will be a lot clearer. So up here above the main, we will declare our functions, and down here we will define them, so to say, when we will write the proper code for them. Functions have a return type. So for main, it is an integer. You type in return 0. This instruction return 0, it terminates the program, but 0 is a integer, and you see here in front of the function you will always have to specify the return type. So one of the main reasons, by the way, that I'm not perhaps using strictly technical terms that a full-time programmer would use is because I primarily learn in terms of C++ and in terms of other programming languages only the things that I needed for my purpose, which is pretty much the ethical hacking part, and that is what I'm trying to impress upon you as well. This is not a way to make games or something like that. This is purely a way to create pretty much malicious code, which we are not going to abuse, which we are going to use for benevolent purpose. In any case, it won't be an illegal purpose. So yeah, just want to throw that in somewhere. Anyway, let's go ahead and start writing our first function. This function will return an integer as well, or even better, let's go ahead and make this function return a double. So you just type in double, and you can type in, let's call this function sum, and this function will take two double values. So double A and then comma double B. Functions do not necessarily need to receive these values. So I will show you in a moment how you can pass these values to a function. So it can also be like this. This part can be empty, no big deal. It all depends what it is meant to do. So we have declared our function here, and we have placed a semicolon here, but we won't need it down below. Down below we will open up curly brackets, and we will start writing our function. All we need to do is type in return as we've typed in before in the main, and we can just type in a plus b. That's it. That's all we need to do. you can of course write a more complex code, but for the time being, let's just use this as a demonstration. And now I could just type in cout here, and I can type in the sum of 3 and 5 is over here. So sum, and then open parentheses, and here we can type in 3, 5 colon, and let's go ahead and compile that. Yep, there we go. The sum of 3 and 5 is 8. This is basically the simplest example I could give of pretty much the simplest function I could think of. So it has a return type of double. It will return a double, and we have named it sum. You can name it pretty much whatever you want, as long as you use lowercase and uppercase letters under lines. And then you have a two double values inside, two double types inside, and these are not we have not assigned them any values, but when we pass them in like this, so just instead of writing this in here, we type in two values, and A is substituted with 3. A is given a value of 3, and B is given a value of 5, which in turn is placed here, which in turn is placed here. Here they are added, and then that value is returned. So you can write these functions for division and subtraction and pretty much all the functionalities of a calculator. This is how the calculators are made. You have a series of these functions for every one of those options. Here, actually, let me just show you a calculator here. So, come on. Please? No? Yes? Okay. Come on. There we go. So you have some basic functions here, but if we switch to scientific, you have a lot more. So you have these mathematical functions here, cosine, sine, tangent, etc. All of those functions have a mathematical representation, which in turn is written like this. So this would be, for example, a function to add two numbers. You could also write more complex mathematical functions if that's something that you would be interested in, but we're not going to do that now, primarily because we don't need it. And something is eating up my CPU. Well, apparently not. It's just a slow virtual machine. Anyway, okay, so that would be one of them. Let's go ahead and deal with something else. So you can also have a void function, which can do something for you, but it doesn't necessarily need to return a number or anything of a kind. It doesn't need to necessarily return a value. So let's call this one, I don't know, let's call it welcome. And we're not going to give it any arguments, but we definitely can if we would like to, and we might do that a bit later on. So void, as in void, it doesn't return anything, empty. It's not an empty function, of course there are things in it, but you get the idea. I'm just saying that it cannot return a number or anything of a kind. And we can just type in cout welcome to somewhere where I have no idea. Okay, so let's put a semicolon at the end, and let's go ahead and call this function down below. So cout, actually, yeah, well, welcome. But actually, let me just show you one more thing here as soon as I'm done with this. There's so much to show you, and I gotta compress it a little bit. Welcome does not work. Why does it not work? What is the problem? Let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so reduced configuration type parameters, char and void. Cannot convert welcome type void to the type. Okay. So this is a bit of a more complex error, so we're not gonna actually deal with that, but if I was to start explaining it, that would be hilarious, because it would take forever. But this is actually pretty stupid. This would be the equivalent of me typing in, so just take a look at what I did now. I'm gonna write an example of what I did. So I basically wrote C out, and then something, and then again C out, and then again something, or a statement here, or something like just some random text, not a statement. So this is pretty stupid on my part. Let's go ahead and just delete cout, because we literally have no need for it. We can just call the function on its own, and it will print out whatever we tell it to print out. And there you go. Welcome to somewhere where I have no idea. Let's go ahead and endl here. Press enter. Excellent. So it says the sum of 3 and 5 is 8. Welcome to somewhere I have no idea where. If you wanted to do cout like this, you would need to. It would need to be a string. So a function that returns a string, and string is also another type of a variable, which can contain, basically, as I said, spaces, can contain lots of letters. We can pretty much type in whatever you want. And this thing would return x. Let's call it x, who cares? And we're going to give it a string x, and we're going to give it a string x. And before we actually output it, we will ask the user kindly cout enter whatever you would like. Okay, so cout, we don't need this. Yeah, actually we can do, but in a different sense. Hold on. And then we type in cin. And again, we would need some sort of a string in our main function, because when you define a variable inside a function somewhere, that variable is only valid for that particular function there. So let's go ahead and type in string x. I can call this one again by the same name, but it doesn't have any relation to the string x in the function welcome. So string x will be here. We'll just leave it as it is, and I will type in cin x, and we'll actually need a different one, like this get line. Okay, so this should work. GetLine is one of those functions that's embedded into C++ and that we use in order to insert a whole line, not just a single character. And that's pretty much all you need to know about cline. This is its syntax. You type in getLine, and then you type in cin here, and then you type in comma, and then you type in your string here. These text manipulation things will come in handy later on when we deal with the keylogger. And down below, we're going to go ahead and say cout welcome, and we shall pass x to that function. That's actually it. So let's just go ahead and, oh yeah, misclick. So the sum of 3 and 5 is 8. Enter whatever you would like. Hi, I am here, or am I take a wild guess. And there you go. It says, hi, I am here, or am I? Take a wild guess. So there are several new things here. Basically the get line, which you just need to see the syntax of it. That's pretty much it. You don't need to completely understand it. There's a whole background to this function. And you have these sort of functions, which are basically just with return types, and you type in the name, whatever you would like, pretty much, and specify the return type in front. So this return type is a string. It will return a string x, and that x will be given to it by the user input. So this is like an echo. You input something and it just gets printed back on to the screen. Fairly simple, not a lot of complications. And just to show you that this would work without me actually inputting anything, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to have an x. I can delete this, and I can delete this, and I can delete this. So I can just say return, and then, hey, how is it going? Are you enjoying it? I totally see myself misspelling a lot of things here. The course, please do not misuse. Please do not abuse the knowledge. There we go. And this is like my subliminal message that is supposed to be like hidden in here somewhere, that you shouldn't do any harm with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start up the keylogger, the program. Oh yes, of course. Sorry. So C out. We need something to print it out because we've removed the C out from the function completely. And there we go. And there we go. Yeah. Hey, how's it going? Are you enjoying the course? Please do not abuse the knowledge. And that is this particular function here. It says just return. That is all that there is to it. Now you also have these things, char. So char is, let's say C. This would be a single character, so it can be, just put single quotes there. It can be whatever character you would like it to be. So let's say character A or something like that. You can type in C out C, and if I just go ahead and recompile it, oops, there you go, just A, no big deal. So we have char and we have a string which we can use in order to play around with more complex things, because we will need the string, I assure you of that. There will be a lot of text with the keylogger, and there's no way of doing it without strings or chars. Anyway, I bid you all farewell until the next tutorial.